Hey Stampers, Kim from stampingandperfection.com. Thanks for joining me today. I wanted to share with you the latest kit I got from Simon Says Stamps because it was fantastic. Like, I am always excited about these kits when they arrive, and I think this is probably my favorite kit that I get. I am a huge kit fan. So everything comes in a bag with the Simon Says sticker on it, and you always get a sheet of ideas, and on the bottom it has a list of things that you get in the package. You always get a variety of their cardstocks. This time I got 4 different pieces of cardstock. These are full sheets of cardstock. And this month I got some, let's see, where is this from? These are Pebbles ink foil foam letter stickers. I find myself using stickers a lot more, especially on cards. I never did that before, so sometimes the letters are actually fun because this is already coming with some foam dimension on it, and look at the number of stickers I get. So this is Pebbles ink. These are called Thickers from American Crafts. The next thing I also got is a full-size stamp set from Simon Says Stamps. And this one is called Thankful Flowers. So it's got a huge variety of floral images that I can color in with my markers or pencils, or I can do watercoloring, or I can just choose to leave as clear, just do a white and black image, for example, or white and whatever other color I want to use to stamp with. But the sentiments are fantastic, and there are several different font sizes, and look how tiny some of this is. For these little tiny ones, you'll want to make sure that you use a detail ink. So you want to make sure that you use a black detail ink. I like the Altenew Obsidian pigment ink. It's very crisp. I also like the Brutus Monroe has a detail ink, and Simon Says has a great intense ink pad. It's intense black, and you can use it for solvent and alcohol markers. So this is a good ink for alcohol markers, and it's a nice detail ink also. This did not come in the kit, but that's a really good detail ink as well. It also came with, this was jam-packed full. You always get beautiful envelopes, and one of my favorite things, can you see the sheen and sparkle on the envelopes? Like, I get envelopes in all colors from these kits from Simon Says, and they are this metallic sheen or the little bit of sparkle is just an extra special touch, and I love the envelopes. Sometimes you get a whole bunch of envelopes, sometimes you get just a few. I've got a little tiny envelope here also, perfect for tag size or a gift size. I have a thanks wafer thin die, so I love that. Like, that will definitely get used a lot. I also have, they always come with sets of patterned paper, and so I get to try out, like, the fun thing about it is Simon Says sells such a variety of stuff that I get to try out stuff from a lot of different companies that I might not have tried out myself. So I get papers from a lot of different companies, and this particular one is from My Mind's Eye. Now when I get these papers, I slide them into one of these 6x6 fab file inserts, and this will go in my Simon Says fab file from Totally Tiffany. I love these Totally Tiffany things, and you can see the variety. I mean, sometimes I get whole packages of paper and things, but a lot of times I'll get a partial set of paper that's like one of each paper in the pad, and I really like it because it allows me to try out the different papers. So I store it just like this, and all of this is like the whole variety of my kits. Most of that is from Simon Says. I can get this closed. There we go. So I love this. So that immediately gets stored in there. And then I got some great, this looks like craft. I have not opened this yet, but I see two different kinds of things. This is like 8 by 8. So this is 8 by 8. I have a piece of metallic foil, actually 2 pieces of metallic, 3 pieces of metallic, 4 pieces of metallic foil. Oh, look at that. I didn't notice that. This says this envelope is walnut wood grain, and it has got a little bit of a wood grain. I don't know if you can see very well on camera there. So that's interesting. And then, here's something I love about these kits. I'll get some kind of product, but I'm super excited about this. This is a Tim Holtz 5-inch mini snips, and like these are a nice little item to get in a kit if I can get it out of the paper, because I absolutely adore these Tim Holtz. I think these are 9-inch shears or 9-inch scissors. I also have this pair of snips. I love these because they have this soft rubber. They also have gigantic holes for my hands, so I don't feel like I'm crunching my fingers up. So I absolutely adore these. So now to have a pair of snips, and I love that they come with little covers. I use the little covers, although I have to say I have lost the one that goes on that. But that came in the kit. This whole kit with all of this stuff was $34.99. Like, honestly, that's a great deal, and I'm going to be trying out a few things I have not tried out before. So I get to try out a bunch of different things, and I get this great new product that I'm super excited about. Look, it's got soft handles, and these are going to be fantastic paper snips. These are, usually they're Teflon. Does this say Teflon? They're non-stick. It's some kind of non-stick surface. Resistant to rust and corrosion, high durability. Oh, they're titanium coated blades. And it's got a micro-serrated edge. That's pretty cool. For controlled cutting, that's what they say. And these are Tim Holtz scissors, so I'm excited to give these a try and see how I like them, because good paper snips are hard to find. Plus I got the Mind's Eye pattern papers. It always comes with cardstock, envelopes, pattern papers. There's usually some specialty paper of some kind in there. And then I always get a stamp set or two. I don't always get dies, but I love when I get the dies. I love when you get a little die, because these little single dies get used a lot. And then I usually get some kind of scrapbooking accessory type thing. Like sometimes you get packages of die cuts, like, or sometimes you'll get some kind of really great embellishment, and usually you get, I already put this away. Look at this. I already put this in my tool thing. No, I didn't. It's right here. So I assimilated this into my stash already. But you also get some kind of great little tool or new product to try, and I really like that. So I think that's super fun. Occasionally you'll get the little mini ink cubes. Those are really great because it gives you a chance to try out the different colors, and if you love something, then you can purchase the larger size ink pad, because that is so much more convenient to stamp with, the larger size ink pad, but super fun. So now let's see what I can create with this. So I'm taking this class with Altenew Academy. I love their classes. For less than $10, you can take some really great classes there. And this month's class is a color blending class taught by Kelly Lativola, who is one of my very favorite colorists. And she says she's been doing alcohol marker coloring for about 10 years or so. And so she said her thing is practice, practice, practice. So I like to take classes and try different things. And I try to take classes with different people so that I get different ways of trying things, so I can find the technique that actually works for me. So I'm starting out here with one of those big floral, the biggest floral image from that Thankful Flowers stamp set, and I'm stamping it on a couple different pieces of scrap paper. They're basically 4 1/4 by about 5 1/2. And I'm going to stamp it a couple times. And I'm using the Simon Says Intense Black because I wanted to get a really nice intense black color. And this is safe for alcohol markers. My other favorite black ink to use for alcohol markers is the Altenew Permanent Black Ink. I quite like that one also. So I've stamped this using my MISTI, and I like using a stamp positioner so I can stamp it multiple times and get a really dark image. So I'm starting out with some oranges. Since I'm taking an Altenew class, I'm going to use the Altenew Artist markers. I love these markers because the price point is so reasonable, and they've been coming out with sets of 12 at a pretty comfortable rate for the last couple years, and it's kind of nice to be able to just get a set of 12, and they package them in colors that actually work kind of nicely together. So the first set I'm using is basically, this is actually one of the newer sets that I got. This is marker set E, and I'm going to be using these orange colors, and they're actually marked with Y, yellow, and I'm using yellow Y512, Y514, Y608, and Y817. And I'm starting with the lightest color, and I'm just kind of going in where I want my darker colors to basically go. And um, when I take classes with Kelly Latavola, or when I watch her videos, she always starts with the lightest color and then goes to the darkest color. And I kind of like using this flicking technique. A lot of times she'll outline it, just run her marker along and outline it. And then like she puts the lightest color down sort of in a larger space than she will the next darkest color, and each color gets thinner and thinner. So I generally do a few flowers at one time because I don't have enough patience to do one flower at a time. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to do one flower at a time, but I kind of like doing it this way. And so I'm just using this little gentle flicking motion. I've I've been using this mostly because I really want to practice it. So I'm flicking from the bottom and then also just from the top, and I'm trying very hard to leave white space in between the bottom and the top. That's one of the things I'm working on right now, is leaving some white space, because I've noticed that I get a really nice dimensional look to my floral images and my leaves and stuff when I have that white space where it almost looks like the light is hitting it because the petal sort of bends over. So I'm just putting that Y512, which is my lightest color, and I'm going to use 4 different colors to do this. So again, this is Altenew marker set E that I'm mostly using today. And they have actually set their markers up. They're a set of 12 markers, and they have them basically so that if you purchase a set, you can actually do a lot with it. This has the oranges and the greens and then some grays that are really nice, neutral grays that actually allow you to do like drop shadows and things like that. So the next color I'm using, the next darkest one, is Y514. So I'm just going to flick that right over the top of what I just did, and I'm going to, I usually don't flick it quite as far as I flick the lighter color, and then I'm outlining the edge of all the petals where, on the side where it looks like the petal is, one petal sits over the other, I try to put that darker color on the side of the petal where the like it looks like the petal is below the other one, on the side with the petal that's below the other one. So I'm just doing the same thing with all the other ones, and I'm outlining where I want it to be a little darker and to have a little bit of to look like it's darker or shadowed in that spot. So I'm going to put darker colors there. And I'm just going to go through this and do each color in turn.
I've taken classes with Kit and Clouder. Those are really good ones. And I've also taken, in fact, I've been doing those for a while. And I've also taken them from Mindy Baxter at My Creative Scoop. She does her colors in the opposite direction that Kelly Latavola does them. And both Kelly and Mindy I discovered through Altenew Academy. So that's nice. The next color I'm using here is Y608. That's my third darkest color, not the darkest one I'm going to use. And I'm just going back over what I just did. So I'll go from lightest to darkest, and then I'll then go in reverse from darkest to lightest. And I'm trying not to flick this one quite as far up, but I am still outlining the petals that look like they're beneath the other petals. I'm just outlining the edges of those where I expect it should be darker because the light wouldn't get to those places. So uh, I know that when I'm coloring, I'm supposed to be thinking about where the light's coming from, but I really haven't developed that technique well. I am mostly just practicing flicking, doing some general shading, blending my colors, and leaving some white space so that I have room to put that lighter color in. This is my darkest color. This is Y817, and I'm going to put a little less of this in. Like I'm hardly flicking that up at all, but I'm still going to outline those petals, and I'm doing a little bit of this at the top just to give some dimension to the top of the leaves. And the thing I really like about this stamp set as I'm doing this, the artist who designed this put a lot of lines in so you can see where you need to put your color and where you need to put your darker colors to make it look like it's folding over and shaded. And I really like that's actually a nice guide. Sometimes you'll get a floral image that has no lines whatsoever and you kind of have to put your own in, and that's kind of fun too. But when you're first learning and when you're practicing the skill, it's nice to have those lines in there. So that's one thing. So these Altenew Artist markers, these are alcohol markers, and I know as if you have been a YouTube subscriber of mine for a while or a regular blog reader, you know I love Altenew ink pads. Love, love, love. I think they are stunning colors. These markers coordinate with their ink pads. And since they have not got a marker for every color, I'm assuming they're going to surprise me with some more marker sets that will coordinate with more of the colors. And now I'm going to go back to the second darkest color, the Y608, and I'm going to try to just blend the edges. And I really like the flicking a lot, and I like the texture that you get when you leave some of those flicked lines kind of showing when you don't blend it too much. So sometimes I blend those out, other times I leave those flicked lines so you can actually see them because I love that texture that it gives. This time I'm going to mostly blend them out. Um, but as I was saying about the Altenew markers, there are actually, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets. And like set A has it has a red and a blue and a green set of coordinating markers. So they do a really good job of putting a light, a mid-tone, and a dark, or a light and two mid-tones and a dark. So you can do exactly what I'm doing here. And that I like that one's got the reds, the blues, and the greens because you can do a lot with set A. This set that they just came out with, well, it's been out for a while actually. That I'm using here. This is set D. I love these colors, the oranges and the greens. And I think it's really nice to have some gray choices too because I like to do drop shadows. That was another class I took with Kelly Latavola. She did this one layer wonders and she taught about drop shadows. It was fantastic. And that was also at Altenew Academy. I'll put links to these classes below because they really are fantastic. This class, the color blending class, talks a lot about color theory and how to actually select your colors using the color wheel and using, what color schemes are harmonious schemes and so forth. I've actually created on my website, it's under free tutorials. I actually have a printable, a free printable that I created, so you can make your own color wheel, and so you can actually swatch out all the Altenew Artist markers in the sets. So I've organized it by sets. That was the first lesson that she actually had us do. And I also created a sheet with some color theory notes on it. So that was my Y514. And now I'm taking my lightest color and I'm going back over this with my lightest color, which is Y512. And I'm filling in all the spaces that I left, all the white spaces that I left. And I'm also just kind of trying to blend it a little bit because I really, the class is about color blending, so I'm trying to do a good job with the blending. And I'm going to add a little bit more dimension in a couple places. And again, I'm just practicing blending. One of the things that Kelly said in this class is if you don't like the way it's blended, go over it again. Just go over it again. She said you can go over it as many times as you need to get the look you want. And I also find that sometimes I need to stop and let it dry because it looks very different dry than it does when it's wet. So I'm just taking this. This is Y205, a nice yellow. I like a little yellow mixed in with my oranges. I don't know why. I just like the way it looks. It sort of brightens it up a little bit. So I'm just doing that on the basically on the tips of the petals, and it also helps to blend it a little bit. So I kind of like the way that comes out. Like for me, it just brightens it up a little bit. I can see a little bit of a difference. So the next thing I'm going to do is just look at it. And I also use that Y205, by the way, for the center. Now I'm pulling out the greens from that same marker set E, and I'm going to start with the lightest one, which is my G804. And I do leaves a couple different ways. Mostly I just sort of color them in completely with the lightest color. I don't know why this feels the most comfortable for me to do, just to fill the whole leaf in. And unless I'm super practicing my white spaces, but I don't know. I just was ready to color this whole thing in. So then I'm going to take my next color, which is G915. I'm just kind of putting a line down the center at the base, and then I'm flicking to the right and to the left to add a little bit of the darker shade. My next darkest shade is G825, and again I'm going to go back over the center. I'm going to shade around the petals or the flowers so that that's where it would be darkest on the leaf, where the flower is actually over the top of them. So I'm using that to provide a shadow, and then I'm taking my darkest color, G935, and I'm putting that right at the base, and I'm going around the flowers, adding a little bit. See, I'm going around the flower there, and then filling it in toward the base where it should be, really dark because it's not getting as much light there. So then again, I'm going to take the second to last darkest color, the one I just put down, that was G825, and I'm going to go back over it and blend a little bit there so that darker green blends in, and then I'm going to take my second lightest color, the G804, do the same thing. I just want to blend the edges where all of these things are kind of meeting. And I don't know how so much of me got in the shot there. Usually I try not to get my head and body in the way. Sorry about that. But now I'm going over it with my lightest color. And I also like to take the yellow to the tips of the leaves also, and I just do the tips, and that's the Y205. Sometimes I use a Y204. 205 is a little bit brighter, so I kind of like to do that. So it just brightens it up a little bit, and it gives it a slightly different look. And you know what? It makes my card a little bit different from somebody else's. So now I'm just taking my Jelly Roll pen, And I especially like this Jelly Roll pen, by the way. This is the Sakura Jelly Roll 10 pen, and I like this one a lot. You can get these in packages, like several come in a package for not very much. And I'm just putting white dots in the center. And now one of the things I have to learn is to let this dry. So when I get these dots all done, I'm going to give this time to dry. So I'm going to set it aside, let those dots dry so I don't smudge them all over. That's hard for me. So I patiently let this dry, and I decided that I'm going to use the new Tim Holtz paper snips. These are mini snips. I think they're called mini snips. And I just want to give them a try. And I have not ever used paper snips with a serrated blade, so this is kind of new for me to use scissors with this, serrated blade. And at first it's taking me a little bit to get used to the texture, and I'm trying to leave a little bit of white space around the edges. So, and these are also shorter than I'm used to. The blade is shorter than I'm used to. But actually, as I go along, I start to like them more and more because it just glides through the paper. And here I missed leaving a little bit of white on the edge of that, but that's okay. It's not that noticeable. And oh well, it's not perfect, but perfection is never my goal. And now that it's dried a little bit, it's had a little bit of time, you can see the yellow that I added to the tips. Like, you can see how bright the tips of those petals look with that yellow on it, and I really like it. So I'm going to finish trimming this up and then finish putting the card together. So my color scheme here was completely inspired by one of the samples from class, and I'm using a Simon Says stamp set from my kit. But what I'm doing is I'm picking a complementary color. I just use oranges for my flower. So with my color wheel, straight across from orange, I have blue. So I'm using a complementary color for the card base. And I'm just cutting it to be 4¼ by 5½. And I'm using this. I love this tool. And this is the We Are Memory Keeper all-in-one tool. I really like it. And so I pulled out the Moroccan Mosaics stamp set from Altenew because I wanted some kind of background. And I didn't have the one that was used in class, and I didn't have the floral set that was used in class. So I'm kind of improvising here with my own thing as far as that goes. But I want to heat emboss. I'm pulling out my larger MISTI, and I'm going to actually stamp this, and I'm pulling out my Totally Tiffany Embossing Station because I love it. It's got my heat tool in it. I'm just plugging it in, and I'm going to let that start warming up, although I find I need to do that less. And I'm making sure that I didn't clean this off the last time I used it. I'm making sure that it's dry and it's not going to come off on my paper. So then I'm just going to place this inside here, and I realize in order to get the whole paper, I actually have to move this up a little bit. And I also need to make sure I turn the stamp in the right direction. I can't really put a magnet down, so I'm not sure how well this is going to work. I'm going to give it a try. I don't quite get it down in the right spot, so I end up doing this twice. So I'm using my Versamark ink, and I'm just inking up that background really well. And one of the things I wish I'd done, I wish I'd pulled out some of my temporary adhesive, because see, now I've moved my paper so that the whole thing isn't covered, and I need the whole thing to be covered because I want it to cover the front of a card base. So nope, that's not going to happen. So I'm going to start over. I have another piece that's all cut there, so I'm going to start over with that, and this time it's bigger piece. So I'm actually going to try this in a different way, and I really need it to cover the whole thing, which it's doing now. I'm really pressing down there, and now I know it goes right into the corner. So this is a larger piece of cardstock than I need, so I can cut this down once I get it all inked up and embossed. And the other piece I will let dry, and I will just use it as a watermarked background, and that'll be fine. So I'm pulling out my big tub of white embossing powder and just covering this with white embossing powder. A bigger spoon would be really way more useful than this little Sunday spoon, but these were like a package of 20 at Michael's in their clearance bin was like $1. So I have some small containers these little spoons are super useful in. The big one needs a big plastic spoon or maybe a giant ice scoop or something. Anyways, I cover that, and then I'm just going to heat set that with my Totally Tiffany tool. And I quite like this tool, and I'm just going to clamp it down. And that clamp sometimes does actually leave marks, so you want to be careful with that. Like I have extra border on the side that will end up being cut off, and I'm just using my We Are Memory Keepers quick stick. There's a little like spatula end, and I'm just taking off some excess that got in the middle. I could have left it on there. My flower is going to go smack dab in the middle of that. So now I'm just going to heat this up, and I like this little tray that came with it. Like this is a really handy way to actually heat emboss. I love this tool. If you have arthritis at all, this is way more comfortable than trying to hold that paper and also hold the heat tool in your other hand for even a small amount of time. Plus, I find that being on that board, it heats up much quicker because the board heats up and then heats up the paper from below also. So that's actually kind of nice. And this is a big piece, so I just pulled it off to get the edges. And the board helps keep that flat too. It helps keep it from warping, because every now and then when you heat emboss, sometimes it warps. So you want to be careful with that. So I'm going to put that aside, and then I'm going to trim this piece down so that I have 5.5 by 4.25. I just peel this off. I have not been very good lately about actually cleaning my stamps off. I took a couple of Tim Holtz's classes, and he said he never cleans his stamps off. So I do clean them off, just not right away like I used to. So I'm pulling out this We Are Memory Keepers all-in-one tool, and I'm just going to trim this down. And I love this thing. Like honestly, this does everything but laundry and dishes. It's unbelievable. It's got the scoring tool, it's got the stamp positioner, it's got a corner rounder. I mean, the list goes on. A banner maker, an envelope maker, a hole punch. It's got a file tab punch. It's got like a pom-pom bow maker. It's got the score tool. Like it's amazing. So I've done this in white embossing, and that blue and that orange look really good together because they are complementary colors. They are directly across from each other on that color wheel that I created, and I will have that, like I said, I'll have that printable on my website for you, and I will actually give you instructions on how I did that. I'll list the specific markers from Altenew that I used. You could use that color wheel for any markers that you have, and if you wanted to use it for watercolors, when you do it, like for the printables, I put the paper that I just use Neenah Solar 80-pound white cardstock. So I put 3 pieces of that into my printer, and I just have an old inkjet printer, and I printed it out, and then I just created my color swatches and my color wheel right on the paper that I'm going to use for, the same paper that I use for actually coloring with those alcohol markers. So, and if I'm going to do watercoloring, I put watercolor paper in there too, like in my printer, and you can use that color wheel for that too. Just, print your color wheel on watercolor paper and you're good to go. So the silicone mat there that I have did not come with this. I have not actually stamped without it. I like to have a little cushion, and I also feel like, isn't it going to come out kind of ridgy with the scoreboard right below it? So I have this little silicone mat, and that magnet holds that in place, so it stores nicely. So I'm just trying to line everything up, and I'm just going to put this down. I like having this little stamp positioner on top, and I've never used one like this before. Basically, just push it down and it pops back up. I think it's like the old Fiskars one. I never had that one. The MISTI is the one that I have. So I'm just fussing with aligning this. And I love this thank you. Isn't that a fantastic, like, it's just a fantastic font. It's nice big letters. There's 2 magnets on the bottom of this. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Like if I flip this We Are Memory Keepers thing over, there's a whole bunch of stuff on the back, including 2 magnets. And so I'm just inking this up with my Versamark. I'm going to heat emboss this in white, and then I'm going to trim it down and pop it on my card. And I really like the tool. Like this would travel with you, and you would have everything you needed there. I mean, it's got the score tool tucked in the side. I actually have a video I haven't put together yet, but I made it the other day, so I'm going to make sure I get that video out for you because I love this thing. It's unbelievable all the stuff you can do with it. And it's been on sale actually at scrapbook.com for World Card Making Day. They had the We Are Memory Keeper stuff on sale all week. So now I can take the same tool, and now I'm just going to trim this down. I'm kind of playing with, where the letter ends and where I can trim it, and seeing. I'm going to just pull it over and see what that looks like. Too big, so I'm going to trim it a little closer for all my letters. Oops. Now this was the one thing I like. If you just want to get a smudge off, I love my little Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer for that little tiny bit you want to get off there. So that is going to take a little practice, and I'm going to need to be careful. And now I'm going to pop that up. You saw that I popped up the flowers using my 3M foam tape. I love this 3M foam tape. I got that on Amazon from some electrical supply place, and I bet I've only gone through 2.5 rolls in like 3 years, and I use it every day. So I'm just popping that up down in the little corner there, and I'm going to add a few little of my favorite embellishments, and I'm also going to add a little bit of this. This is the Nouveau glitter or glimmer. What do they call it? I forget what they call it. It's like the Wink of Stella, but it's the Nouveau version. And I also have Wink of Stella. I just couldn't locate it at that moment, so I pulled this one out. And it's just like clear sparkle. So I'm just going to cover it in clear sparkle. Everybody needs a little sparkle in their lives. So I'm just going to cover all the leaves and flowers. And it doesn't show up very well on camera ever, but it looks so pretty in person. I apologize for my head and my body getting in the way here. I love these little craft mate keepers for my embellishments. These are the clear droplets. This is a mix of sizes. I like a variety of sizes. I don't like all the same size embellishments on one card, so I'm just going to put these around. I like an odd number. I try to put them in like triangles because that was something I learned in the Altenew Academy classes. I think actually that came from the Beautiful Details class. That was one of my very favorite classes from Altenew Academy. So I'm using my We Are Memory Keepers Quick Stick, and I'm using my Ranger Multimedia Mat. And I'm actually getting pretty good with this, but I'm losing a little bit of the sticky on my clay there. It's time to like remove that piece and just turn the dial so a little bit more of the clay comes down. I'm just checking to make sure I've actually stuck all of them on there. I've put an applicator tip on my glue, and I really like that tip. Like, I like that I was able to get a nice needle-like tip so I could do the glue easily. And that's going to complete my card. Isn't that pretty? And again, the color, I did not select the color. That was from the class, but this is the Altenew Moroccan Mosaics, and that is Simon Says Stamps. That's the October card kit, and that's the Thankful Flowers. And the thing I love about the Simon Says stamp kits is that you can actually get the pieces of those kits without buying the whole kit. So the kits sell out pretty quickly. So if you don't get the kit, you can actually still get that stamp set. And then a lot of times in a month or two, they'll come out with a coordinating die for that set, or they might have that in their store already. But they included the scissors, so I did have to give the scissors a try. I don't have the coordinating die, but I do love the way that came out. And the color combination is fantastic. So one of the things I did learn in that class, complementary colors, colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. So you can see the orange is directly across from the blue, and that is very pleasing to the eye. That's a harmonious color combination. So it's very pretty. So this is the printable that I was talking about. And again, you can just hop over to my blog at stampingimperfection.com. At the top, you'll see a tab that says free tutorials, and you will find this 3-page PDF that you can print. This page is some notes that I have been like collecting from the different coloring and watercoloring and color theory classes that I've been taking. So those are the main highlights. I needed to have that in one spot so I could refer to it. And then I created this swatch paper that I've colored in all my artist markers. That was recommended lesson 1, and then as was the color wheel, so I created this color wheel. And again, I printed this on Neenah Solar White right from my inkjet printer, and then made sure the ink was super dry, and then colored it in. And I have I'll have a picture of this on my website at stampingimperfection.com, so you can see what colors I actually used for the color wheel and everything. So please help yourself to that. It's there for the sharing. And you will also find, if you like to watercolor, I also created swatch papers for Altenew's real brush markers. You'll find that free printable there also. And I've also done that by sets, so I can see what sets go together, because Altenew actually does a really good job. Like with their markers, they had 4 different shades of that what is referred to as yellow, which is really orange, and then 4 different shades of green that all coordinate together, so I could go from my lightest to darkest or darkest to lightest depending on which technique you like to use. But that was all from that set E, and you can see the coordination of the sets there. Like, you get quite a variety of colors in each set, so you can really do a lot depending on what kinds of things you like to color all the time. I like to do flowers a lot, so I really like flowers. So for me, set A and set E are golden. I also have to say I love D with all those purples and those beautiful blue-green colors. So that's that. So thank you so much for stopping by. Excuse me. I appreciate it. Please make sure you give this video a like. Click the bell so you get notifications of when I put new videos up, which hasn't been enough lately, and I apologize for that, but I'm retiring in 2 months and 14 days, and I will be putting up more videos after that. So I'm looking at it, and you can see I'm just pointing out I made a mistake there. So that's why one of them appears to have 13 colors, but I actually grabbed the wrong color because, again, I never go for perfection. There's a reason I picked Stamping Imperfection as my name, because I have to let the stress go. And here I'm just pulling out the swatch sheet I made for the Altenew Real Brush Markers. And again, that's a free printable. I put watercolor paper in my printer and printed it on watercolor paper so then I could just use the Real Brush Markers, which are watercolor brush markers, um, and make a swatch set for that, and it's super helpful. So thank you so much for watching. Stop by my blog at stampingimperfection.com. Please make sure you subscribe to my channel, share this video with your friends. You will find the links to the products below. And again, you can get those free printables on my blog at stampingimperfection.com. Thanks so much for watching.